The 2018 American Rhododendron Society convention was held in Bremen, Germany. Attendees had the option to attend pre-convention tours of Germany, Denmark, the Netherlands, and Sweden. A post tour was offered in Finland. This tour took place 28 through 31 May. The tour attendees included a number of ASA members. 27 May was a travel day from Bremen to Helsinki. On 28 May, our first garden to be visited was Haga Rhododendron Park in Helsinki. Haga Rhododendron Park was established in 1975 as a plant breeding experimental site. Now the park attracts visitors to admire its thousands of huge rhododendron and beautiful azaleas. Haga Rhododendron Park was originally started as a plant breeding research garden for the University of Helsinki. Rhododendron tomentosum, a species hardy to Zone 2, grows naturally along the garden edges. The university and the city of Helsinki planted 3,000 rhododendron, which they got from a program started by Peter Tigerstedt in 1973. We were fortunate to have Peter lead us on a tour of gardens he or his family were associated with. In 1976, the garden was expanded by thousands of rhododendron and azaleas. A large collection of deciduous azaleas was planted outside of the forest area of the park. Following are some additional photos of this area of azaleas. After visiting Haga, our next stop was the town of Porvoo. Porvoo was one of 6 medieval towns in Finland and dates back to the 14th century. We stopped for a morning break at a local cafe where we were served coffee and local pastries. We also had the tour of the old part of the city. After visiting Porvoo, our next stop was Arboretum Mustila. The Arboretum in Ilomäki is famous for the rhododendron azaleas, especially in the Rhododendron Valley, with its hundreds of different species and hybrids. Peter Tigerstedt's grandfather established the Arboretum in 1902. The Arboretum was originally established as a conifer plantation. By 1917, rhododendron were well established in the Arboretum. A 300-acre rhododendron valley was added in the 1920s and 30s. Arboretum Mustila is open to the public throughout the year and attracts about 20,000 visitors annually. June is normally the peak month for azalea and rhododendron blooms at the Arboretum. With the unusually warm spring, we were treated to a beautiful display at the end of May. The European native luteum azaleas were found throughout the Arboretum. Other azalea species hardy in Mustila include Canadense, Molly, and Vasii. The Arboretum also included an outdoor chapel where one could rest and enjoy nature. After lunch at the Mustila Arboretum, our next destination was Kotka. The city of Kotka is located on the coast of the Gulf of Finland, about 130 kilometers east of Helsinki. There are several beautiful parks created by the city's gardener Heikki Laaksonen, and the most interesting for us rhododendron and azalea lovers are the Sapoka Water Garden and Fukens Puisto Park. In the 1980s, the Sapokanlahti Bay had become fouled with sludge, was badly polluted, and had occasional odor problems. Although it was even proposed that the bay should be filled in, a decision was made instead to thoroughly clean it and restore azaleas to it at an ecologically sustainable level. Renovation of the area commenced in 1990, and the result was the Sapoka Water Garden, largely completed within 4 years. The rhododendrons consist mostly of named Finnish cultivars, and the azaleas are cultivars from the azalea hybridizing program at the University of Helsinki. Vegetation, water, rock, and lighting are the primary elements of the park, and the park has been awarded several design awards. The objective was to create interesting features and varying viewscapes that would attract people over and over again. The second location we visited in Kotka was Fuksen Puisto Park. Fuksen Puisto Park was established in 1995 as a test planting area for azaleas from the Finnish azalea hybridizing program. Later, the plantings were diversified with other plants. The park contains many ground cover plants, berry bushes, apple, pear, cherry, and plum trees, and numerous varieties of clematis. The group of plants are provided with name labels and include perennials such as irises, cranesbills, daylilies, peonies, and hostas. The next day we traveled west to Salo and the Ilola Arboretum. The Arboretum in the Salo countryside demonstrates landscaping that enhances the diverse natural Finnish landscape and includes ponds, rock gardens, exotic trees, and about 2,000 rhododendron and azaleas. Development of the Arboretum has been a one-man's project and still continues. The gardener, Ari Laakso, sowed the first rhododendron seeds and other woody plants in 1989. and by 1993 he had 500 rhododendron to plant. The seed source was open-pollinated seeds from Arboretum mustilla, and presently only about 20 of the estimated 2,000 rhododendron and azaleas in the Arboretum are named cultivars. Gary has a small nursery on the site, and 95% of his plants in the Arboretum are from his own plantings. Arboretum Aspasgeri, located in Kustavi in the southwestern Finnish archipelago, has hundreds of rhododendrons, trees, and shrubs in the forests and along the shores of this private arboretum. Osmo Jusila, a founding member of the Finnish Rhododendron Society, built a summer home in Kustavi after acquiring an interest in an old fisherman's estate in 2003. He developed Arboretum Aspasgeri by transferring plants from his home garden. Osmo is also a hybridizer, and his 25-acre arboretum includes many hundreds of the rhododendron, including his hybrids. Our last full day of garden tours took us to Korpo. Our only garden visit on the last full day of the post tour was to Christian Thegfest's Rhodo Garden in Korpo. The trip to the Rhodo Garden required the use of 2 ferries. This was a rare treat since Christian very seldom opens his garden to others. A number of the Finnish attendees were seeing the garden for the first time. We had a great bus driver who tried his best to get us close to the garden. However, he reached a point with a rock outcropping on one side and a ditch on the other, which he couldn't get past. We had to traverse the last kilometer on foot. Christian's private rhodo garden has black peat soil that is perfect for rhododendrons, with over 1,000 rhododendrons and azaleas below a canopy of pines on almost 9 acres. Rhododendron tomatosum grows in its bogs. The garden is divided into a number of different sections, including a display garden, a slope garden, and a species garden. Christian is also a hybridizer and has made over 500 crosses. The seedlings spend their first winter in cold frames, are then put in plant boxes in the woods, and finally are planted in rows in the fields. The rhodogarden is almost perfect for the growing of rhododendron, with a pH of 5.5. High rocks shield the garden from storms and radiate the heat from the sun, which they collect during the day. Christian's collection of azaleas includes all of the Northern Lights varieties developed by the University of Minnesota. We came to the end of our finished garden tours. Our last night was in a hotel in downtown Helsinki. We had a final dinner and thanked Christian and Peter for their efforts in making the post-tour a success. 31 May was a travel day for most of the post-tour participants. However, some attendees chose to stay a little longer and see the city's sights. The city's botanical garden was located in a park behind the hotel. The garden's collection included a number of locally hybridized rhododendron and a large collection of Northern Lights azaleas. While we're in Europe, I decided to share a couple of additional gardens. While not azalea gardens, they are both unique, and if you're in Norway, I highly recommend you visit them. The first garden is the northernmost tropical garden. It is hard to believe there is a tropical garden in Stavanger, Norway. The garden was started in 1965 by a nurseryman in Stavanger. Due to health reasons, he and his wife moved to the island. They planted pine trees to create a windbreak and later started a garden. The combination of the windbreak, the Gulf Stream, and the heat collected by the rocks during the day created an environment in which the hardiest palms could survive. The garden collection is supplemented by the planting of 50,000 annuals each year. Among the annuals planted are a large number of begonias. Another unusual find in the town of Tromsø, Norway, is the Arctic Alpine Garden. This is the northernmost botanical garden in the world and is 240 miles north of the Arctic Circle. Rhododendron were considered to be unsuitable for growing in northern Norway. In the late 1980s, plant enthusiasts collected plants from Scotland and central Norway and planted them in Tromsø. These plants included varieties grown from seed collected in China. The collection now includes over 80 species of rhododendron. The pictures were taken in August, past the bloom periods of almost all varieties. Additional photos of rhododendron in bloom were provided by Arv Elverbach at the Arctic Alpine Botanic Garden. This picture shows our temporary home docked in the distance. The garden was prominently advertised on the pier where the ship was docked. The remaining photos of rhododendron were provided by Arvi Elvebach. While all the photos were taken by Rick or Susan Bauer, there are a number of other folks I would like to thank. Timothy Seaman graciously allowed us to use his music. Much of the information in the Finnish Post tour was from an article written by Christian Thegfist and Jaakko Saarinen. And finally, I would like to thank Arvi Elvebach for the additional photos he provided at the Tromsø Alpine Arctic Botanic Garden.